All right, welcome back to this is the JFK assassination audit, and this is video number 80. It's 21 August. We're going back to the JFK timeline. We finished up with Frazier, thank God. Just way too much stuff from Frazier there, and we're just going to go down the list. How I'm doing this timeline is the list that everyone saw Oswald and when they saw him. Okay? So the next person to see Oswald is Jack Daughtry. And then after we finish this list of everyone who sees Oswald, we're going to get into the limousine timeline and when they see the limousine and where on Main, on Houston, on Elm, by the school book depository. We're going to go through all those people, all those witnesses' statements, and find out what they say. Now, one thing that's interesting I'm finding out is that a lot of times the Warren Commission, even though they've got an FBI report, they've got Warren Commission testimony of a person saying one thing, they either ignore that if it doesn't cover their theory that they have, that Oswald was the lone assassin, or they either completely ignore it or they twist it and lie about it. And I've even seen statements where the FBI says one thing and their affidavit said something else. So not only is the FBI changing things, the Warren Commission is cherry-picking statements that go along with its scenario. And sometimes outright lying about what someone said or didn't say, or say they saw or didn't saw, and stuff like that. So anyway, this is the only other person that saw, besides Frazier, Oswald go into the building. Okay, he's also supposedly the only other person saw Oswald carrying a package into the building. It's very, very iffy. So you're going to see what I mean here. Now, this is an affidavit form, okay? So what happens usually is the police will bring someone in. They'll talk to them if they decide they want to keep their information. They'll have them write out a statement. Here, it's an affidavit statement. Write down what you saw, what you told us about what we were asking about. And then they'll do that. They'll write it out in their own writing. They'll give it to a transcriptionist who will go and type it up, word for word. Okay, usually she's sitting there beside the guy with the statement, and if you get to a word she can't read, she'll say, and this word means, and this word is what? Okay, thank you. And then she'll, or he, I'm going to say she because it's usually a she, is typing it up, and then we'll type up a date and pull it out of the typewriter, hand it over to the witness, Jack Daughtry, and say, go ahead and read this, and if you agree with everything, please sign it at the bottom. That's a witness affidavit. Now, that's completely different than an FBI report. An FBI report is not as reliable. It's not a witness statement. An FBI report is an FBI agent goes and asks questions. He takes down notes in his little notebook, and then either that day or a couple of days later even, he recalls and types up what he remembers the witness saying, supposedly. We've also found that they changed a lot of those. Sometimes they go in and change vastly from what the witness said to what the report says. And these reports in the FBI is usually used, like if you have an FBI agent, you send them out and interview witnesses, it comes back. Those reports go up to their team leader, okay? And say you may be handling guys or interviewing all the people at the Texas School Book Depository. You're going to have one team leader for that. And then, but you may have someone in the FBI in the Dallas office that's handling the whole JFK assassination. Usually has an assistant. So those team leaders may even write up their own summary of those reports and include those reports in their summary to the team leader the investigative leader, the special agent in charge, they call it. That special agent in charge may even type of his own summary of all what he's read and information that he's known or he's gotten from other sources besides those reports. Put that together and send it on to be read by, Hoover, Tolson, all these other guys, Felt, all these other guys in D.C. And then from those reports, they can get their information and they can decide how they're going to utilize their other assets around the country. So if they read a report here that a guy says, yeah, I saw a car speeding away that had Louisiana license plates, LM5996 or something like that. Well, Hoover's going to put out a memo to his Louisiana field office in New Orleans. Go check out this license plate. Tell us what we have. If another guy says, yeah, there was this guy with a really heavy Boston accent carrying a gun walking down the street, and I talked to him for a second, they're going to send out another agent to Boston with the description of this guy, trying to figure out who this guy is, okay? So this is how these things work. And, this is why it's a national network. So we're going to get into this. This is Jack Daughtry. He works inside the Texas School Book Depository. I believe he is the guy that comes in the morning and opens up the place, but we'll see what happens here. So I'm not guaranteeing I can read all of his writing, but hold on one second. All right, so it says Jack Daughtry, WM40, so that must mean white male, 40, 1827 South Marsalis. Now, he's just right down the road, about 13 blocks from where Ruby is living. Okay, this must be his phone number here, WH67170. I'm employed at the Texas School Book Depository at 411 Elm and have been since 1952. I was working on the 6th floor today. There was 6 of us working on the floor. The others were Billy Lovelady, William Shelley, Danny Arche, Bonnie Williams, and Charles Givens. And notice he doesn't say anything about Oswald. So again, you have to think, Oswald's not working on the 6th floor. They've got all this crew working on the 6th floor. Why not pick a less busy floor to work on, like the 5th floor, the 7th floor? But he chooses the floor that they just happen to be having a whole huge crew up there moving things around. Okay? Most people work on the 1st floor. Most of the stock is done from the 1st floor. If they run out of stock in one of the bins they have on the 1st floor, they'll go up to another floor and grab a box and bring it back down. So if you're thinking about assassinating the president, don't you think that the best place to be would be on the floor where the least amount of people would be, like the 7th or the 5th floor? But Oswald chooses the floor where everybody is a large group of people working and tearing up the floor, and then they all go to lunch together. And again, Oswald's really lucky, because what if the president decided to come by at 11 o'clock or 11:30 or was on time at 12:15, okay, or no, 12 o'clock when he's supposed to come by, okay, because everyone cut out of there about 11:45 because they all had heard the president should have been coming by their area about 12 o'clock. So they all wanted to go to lunch early. They ran downstairs, they all ate lunch real quick, and then they all went outside. Oswald has no idea that the president's running 30 minutes late, okay? As far as he knows, everybody could come back from lunch early because, hey, the president already passed through or they could just all go back up there. So he doesn't know what exactly is going on. Anyway, I worked until 12 noon and went down on the first floor and ate my lunch and went back to work at 12:45. All right, hold on one second. All right. I went back to work at 12:45. I had already gone back to work, and I had gone down on the 5th floor to get some stock when I heard a shot. It sounded like it was coming from inside the building, but I couldn't tell from where. I went down on the first floor and asked a man named Eddie Piper if he had heard anything, and he said that he had heard 3 shots. I then went back on the 6th floor. Blank, I didn't see anyone on the floor except the people I named. There was another employee that is named Oswald that I saw on the 6th floor. He worked all over the building, but I saw him on the 6th floor shortly before noon. I didn't see Oswald in the building after. So apparently what he's saying here, he's mixing it up, that when he went back to work he says he went back to work at 12:45. Okay, but that doesn't make any sense because all the shooting would have been occurring before 12:45. You see, so people's memories, this is why witnesses are absolutely horrible. He's saying he went back at 12:45. He's going around the floors. Then he goes up to the 5th floor after 12:45, and he's hearing shots. And then he goes down to the 1st floor, and he goes back up to the 6th floor, and he sees all the other employees up there at 12:45. But the shots occurred at 12:30. So he must have been having lunch, and then after the shots occurred, that's when he went up to the 5th floor. But I don't know. I'm just going by his testimony. Pretty confusing. All right, let's see. What's the next one? All right, so that's the written affidavit. We got another one here. Hold on one second. So here's that notary public, Patsy Collins, right there. There's another one that's down at the police station too. So it's basically the same thing, except it's all typed up. I'm employed at the Texas School Book Depository at 411 Elm and have been since 1952. I was working on the 6th floor today. There were 6 of us working on the floor. Let's see, the others were Bill Lovelady, William Shelley, Danny Erker, Bonnie Williams, and Charles Givens. I worked until 12 noon and went down on the 1st floor and ate my lunch and went back to work at 12:45. I had already gone back to work and had gone down on the 5th to get some stock when I heard a shot. See, that doesn't make any sense because the shots all occurred at 12:30. So he must have heard the shots from the 1st floor at 12:30. But he's saying that he went back upstairs at 12:45, then went down to the 5th floor to get some stock, and then he heard the shot. It sounded like it was coming from inside the building, but I couldn't tell from where. I went down on the 1st floor and asked a man named Eddie Piper if he had heard anything, and he said yes, that he had heard 3 shots. I then went back on the 6th floor. I didn't see anyone on the floor except the people I named. There was another employee that is named Lee Oswald that I saw on the 6th floor. He works all over the building, but I saw him on the 6th floor shortly before noon. I didn't see Oswald in the building after lunch. So there you go. So doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm thinking what you can think from this statement is that he was working, was at lunch, was on the 1st floor, heard the shots, asked someone if he heard the shots, yes, and he went back to work, went back up to the 6th floor, then back down to the 5th floor. He didn't hear, unless he stopped lunch at 12:30 when he heard the shots, he wasn't on the 5th floor when he heard the shots. So again, Witness statements are notoriously horrible. They get times wrong, they get names wrong, they get all kinds of things wrong. But in general, what you can take is, in general, the consensus of all the statements of what happened. All right. This is the another version of that typed up affidavit. I believe this is an FBI report done on 19 December. So the FBI, what they've done is they got all these affidavits from the sheriff's department and the police department, and then, because I think around this time the Warren Commission has been formed. I think it's informed within like a week or so. So what they're doing is they're sending out the FBI to do the investigation and present that to the Warren Commission. So this is what the FBI is doing. They're reading, somebody is reading through all these affidavits in Washington, D.C. or Dallas. They're deciding, cherry picking, which ones, because they already know the narrative they want. One gunman, one killer. They're going out and re-interviewing those people that go along with that narrative. This is one of those, or that don't conflict with that narrative. This is on 12/19. Jack Daughtry, 1827, Marcellus, employee of the Texas School Book Depository, was re-interviewed to clarify information previously furnished to him or by him to the FBI on November 22nd, 1963, in relation to the information furnished by him to the Dallas Police Department on the same date. Daughtry advised that he arrived at work at the Texas School Book Depository just prior to 7 a.m. on November 22nd, 1963. Daughtry stated that he saw Lee Harvey Oswald, who had been working there for just a few weeks, at approximately 8 a.m. when Oswald arrived. He stated that he saw Oswald again at approximately 11 a.m. on the 6th floor, but did not see him again after that. So you notice that he sees Oswald when he arrives, okay? But he doesn't say anything about Oswald carrying a package. So that's at 8 a.m. Oswald was walking from the car, Fraser's car, at about 7:55. So how would he have had time to slip through the door, get the rifle upstairs, assembled, and then be back downstairs for Daughtry to see him at 8 o'clock? Doesn't make much sense. You have to think about all the logistics involved in that. He went all the way up those stairs and no one saw him carrying a package or a rifle up those stairs. Anyway, Daughtry stated that he saw Lee Oswald, who had been working there for just a few weeks, at approximately 8 a.m. When Oswald arrived. He stated that he saw Oswald again at approximately 11 a.m. on the 6th floor, but did not see him again after that. Now, in his other affidavit, he says he sees Oswald up on the 6th floor with the crew after 12:45 when he hears those shots. Anyway, we'll keep going. Daughtry stated that just prior to 12 p.m., he and 5 other men were working on the 6th floor. He stated that the others were Will Shelley, Dan Arkey, Bonnie Williams, Bill Lovelady, and Charles Givens. Daughtry stated that he worked on the 6th floor until 12 p.m., at which time he went to the 1st floor to eat his lunch. He said he went back to work at approximately 12:45, at which time he returned to the 6th floor. He stated that as soon as he arrived on the 6th floor, he went down to the 5th floor to get some stock. See, that doesn't make any sense, because the shooting's already occurred at 12:30. So he would have been on the 1st floor eating his lunch when the shooting occurred. And there's no way in hell he went up to the 6th floor, because that's when the police were rushing in. Doesn't make any sense. Daughtry stated that it was while he was on the 5th floor that he heard a loud noise. He said that it appeared to have come from within the building but could not tell where. He said that he went down to the 1st floor and saw a man, Eddie Piper, and asked him if he had heard a loud noise, and Piper told him that he had heard 3 loud noises. He also told him that someone had just shot the president. Daughtry stated that he then went back to the 6th floor. He said that he used the elevator to go up, and when he went back up there was no one on the 6th floor. He stated that the 5 other men who had previously mentioned had gone down to the 1st floor to watch the president go by. So again, none of that makes any sense, because within 90 seconds, the supervisor of the Texas School Book Depository and a motorcycle cop are running into the building. They go back to the stairwell. Well, first they try to get the elevator to go up, and it's locked. It won't work. So how's he using that elevator? Then they go up all the flights of the stairs, stopping at the 2nd floor. They never mention seeing Daughtry coming back down, or even on the 6th floor. Don't you think they would have saw him on the 6th floor? Doesn't make any sense. And also, if all this is true, Will Shelley, Danny Archie, Bonnie Ray Williams, Billy Lovelady, and Charles Givens would all be coming down the stairs from the 6th floor instead of standing out front, which is what they were doing, because we got a picture of Billy Lovelady standing out front there. So none of what Daughtry is saying is really making much sense. This is why they're trying to clarify it with the FBI. So let's see if he keeps going with this craziness. During the above interview, the father of Jack Edwin Daughtry, R.C. Daughtry, was present. It was noted during the interview that of Jack Daughtry, he had difficulty in correlating his speech with his thoughts. Therefore, his father assisted him and furnished answers to the questions asked. So the guy was having mental problems. So this is the FBI's interview, affidavit, with Jack Daughtry the next day, on the 23rd, Saturday. So this is Jack Edwin Daughtry, 1827, South Marcellus, was contacted on 22 November 1963 and furnished the following signed statement: Dallas, Texas, 11/22/63. I, Jack Edwin Daughtry, make the following free and voluntary statement to Alfred Ellington and James W. Anderton, who have identified themselves to me as special agents of the FBI. I'm employed by the Texas School Book Depository at 411 Elm Street, Dallas, as an order filler, and reside at 1827 South Marcellus Street, Dallas, Texas. I started working today 11/22 at 7 a.m. I recall vaguely having seen Oswald, who started work at the School Book Depository about 3 weeks ago. I seem to remember he started work 5 weeks before. Anyway, I saw Oswald again around 11 a.m. today and do not recall seeing him at work after 11 a.m. I was working on the 5th floor of the building at 411 Elm Street at 12:45 or 1 p.m. when I heard a loud explosion which sounded like a rifle shot coming from the next floor above me. I did not see anyone running from the building and did not see anyone fire the shot which I heard. I have read this statement, and this is true. So I'm thinking his times are completely off, that he was back on the 5th floor at 12:30. But again, this doesn't make any sense because in his other statement, we'll just say instead of 12:45, it's 12:30. He's on the 5th floor when he hears the shots. He said before that he was on the 6th floor and saw the whole crew up there, including Oswald. So it doesn't make any sense. He's mentally ill or lying or something. I don't know what the hell's going on with this guy. So again, and now he needs his dad to help him. Also present during the interview with Jack Edwin Daughtry, his father, R.C. Daughtry, who advised his son, received medical discharge from the U.S. Army and indicated his son had considerable difficulty in coordinating his mental facilities with his speech. So he's mentally ill. He got a medical discharge. So there, that explains that. All right, enough of that guy. Hold on one second. All right, this is another one. Hold on one second. So this is going to be a re-interview of the FBI. So again, this is what the FBI will do to either clarify or to weed out liars. Is they'll interview someone several times, ask him the same questions, different ways in the same interview and other interviews to see if their answers are consistent. Okay? All right, so it says statements of witness Jack Edwin Daughtry, March 18th at 1164. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, 1964. Made a statement to 2 FBI agents attesting at the time President Kennedy was shot. I was standing at a point about 10 feet from the elevator on the 5th floor on the Texas School Book Depository building. I was alone at this time. Did not see Lee Harvey Oswald at the time President Kennedy was shot. On the morning of November 22nd, I saw no person in the Texas School Book Depository building that was a stranger to me. An earlier Daughtry statement dated December 19, 1963 is indeed intended to clarify one he made to the FBI on November 22nd, and it really didn't. Daughtry stated he saw Oswald at approximately 8 a.m. and again approximately 11 a.m. on the 6th floor, but not thereafter. Just prior to noon, he and 5 others were working on the 5th floor. On the 5th floor. Now he's changed. Wow. Okay. He means the 6th floor. When Daughtry went to the 1st floor to eat his lunch, he said that he went back to work at approximately 12:45. Here we go again. At which time he returned to the 6th floor. See, that doesn't make any sense. He stated that as soon as he arrived on the 6th floor, he went down to the 5th floor to get some stock. While he was on the 5th, he heard a loud noise seeming to come from within the building, but he didn't know where, although just the other statement he said on the floor above him. It is obvious that Daughtry's times are wrong, but if he is telling the truth, he didn't know Oswald was, if he was, on the 6th floor at approximately the time of the assassination. So, this is a statement that they'll put together. Probably the special agent in charge. He'll combine all the statements together and say he's mentally ill, his time was wrong, but this seems to be consistent. So, it is not too unlikely, the one above, the major difference being that he only recalled vaguely seeing Oswald at 8 a.m. He eliminated his trip to the 6th floor after lunch and reported that about 12:45 p.m. or 1 p.m. when I heard a loud explosion that sounded like a rifle shot coming from the 6th floor above me. So the clarification eliminates that. No, it doesn't. It says the guy's mentally ill, and his statement's completely untrustworthy. All right. Now this is his testimony before the Warren Commission, typed up. And we'll get about a minute into this and have to stop. The testimony of Jack Daughtry taken at 10:50 a.m. on April 8th, 1964 in the office of the U.S. Attorney 301 Post Office Box Building, Bryan and Irving Street, Dallas, Texas, by Joseph A. Ball, Assistant Counselor of the President's Commission. So in this Warren Commission testimony, okay, so there's a big filtration process that's going on. I've gone over this before, but we'll go over it again. So you've got, and again, it's like a sales funnel. I'm in sales. We do the sales funnel here. So it's like an upside down pyramid. You've got people who heard things and saw things. So say you got 100 of them here. Well, out of that 100, maybe 95, 98 of them will say, hey, I saw something, and won't dismiss it. And they'll either tell a friend or they'll tell a policeman. So you got, out of 100, maybe 90 will go tell a policeman. And a policeman will either look at them, listen to their statement, and think they're crazy, or think hey, that's something we need to get in. So let's go down to the sheriff's office. Out of the 100, out of those 90 that talk to the police, maybe 85 they'll bring down to the police station. Out of those 85 at the police station, they're going to do an affidavit, okay? Maybe they'll get 84 affidavits. Maybe a guy will say, hey, I've got to get back to work, or no, I don't want to do an affidavit. And they'll do the affidavit. Those 83, 84 affidavits will go to the FBI. The FBI are looking for affidavits that back their position. There was one shooter, Oswald. So maybe they'll pull 75 of those, okay? Out of those 75, you're going to have the Warren Commission attorneys. They're going to look at those 75 FBI reports and affidavits, okay? And they're going to decide, well, this guy's useless, it's confusing, we don't know what the hell he's saying. And then maybe out of those 75, they're going to use about 65 of them, okay? But not all 65 are they going to bring to D.C. Only maybe 30 of them they're going to bring to D.C. to show up before the full Warren Commission in D.C. So out of 100 people that saw stuff, only 30 are going to be in front of the Warren Commission. Another 30, 35 are going to be being interviewed by the attorneys at the post office in Dallas. That's the only federal building there, so they're being interviewed there. This is one of those, okay? And then that filtration process continues. So out of those 65 affidavits, if, say, 5 or 10 of those don't support the Warren Commission's case that it was just Oswald, they mention other people, other shooters smoking behind the grassy knoll, things like that, they're going to bury those reports way back in the back of the 6 volumes there, in thousands of pages, at the last third, because people are going to read through the first third, they're going to get bored, and then they're going to stop focusing the second third, and then they might even not get to the last third. So that's where they're going to bury those, and then they're going to ignore those statements that don't agree with their already made conclusion, and just focus on and refer to those statements that there were 3 shots, it was just Oswald, boom, 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 and Ruby. That's it. That's called knowledge filtration. It happens all the time. It's not right, but that's just the way it is, because people are biased. They're human beings. They have their own agendas. They have their own way of looking at things. And, especially in the age of Trump, where everybody has their own truths now you can even make it worse than that. All right, so we're going to stop here and going to pick him back up next time. Now we're going to go into, I got a presentation here by a really great group called Dealey Plaza UK, and they really know their shit, okay? But I'm trying to focus on what happened in Dealey Plaza, and this seems like this is what this presentation is. It's almost 4 hours, so this will be good, because I've probably got hours hundreds of hours of testimony, affidavits and testimony to read through about Dealey Plaza. All right, let's see what this guy has to say. If it doesn't focus on that, I'll move on to something else.
Aware, Greg is the founder and proprietor of the JFK Assassination Research website, tangodown63.com, and I'm going to put a link to that website actually in the chat area so you can all go and check out the excellent website. And what he's going to talk to us about today is the Window Watchers, which is around the suspicious activity in the Texas State Book Depository in Dealey Plaza. So without any further ado, over to you, Greg.
Well, thanks, Tony. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Hear you fine, Greg.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for inviting me today. I was excited to get to talk to you guys. Some of you I know a little bit virtually. Bart, it's nice to see you. I've heard your voice, I think, for probably years on various podcasts and so forth, and we've interacted on Facebook and on some of the groups, so nice to see you, Bart.
Good to have you.
Yeah. And Joe, I think we're Facebook friends. We've bumped into each other a little bit over the years. Neil, thanks for reaching out and inviting me today. I appreciate that. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Is that Bill Fraser? Is that Fraser eating a sandwich behind you in your basement? His lunch?
There's all kinds of stuff behind me in my basement. Who knows what so, and, looks like Ryan might be in his kitchen. He's getting something to eat, but I can appreciate the Pink Floyd T-shirt, mate. I like that. So, so I guess I'll get started here. So thank you. I'm just, as far as who I am, and I'm just a guy. I live in Central Ohio, so I live in Gahanna, Ohio. It's a suburb of Columbus. And for those of you that know anything about U.S. geography, sort of the middle of the country. And it's had an interest. I started gaining an interest in the case when I was a young kid. Had to do a book report on something historical, and this seemed like an interesting topic. And I cracked the book. It was, oh gosh, I was at one of my local, and it was Hugh McDonald, Appointment in Dallas, which I don't know if there's much useful information in that book or not. I couldn't even tell you what it was about or what it was purporting. But that was back when I was probably 14 or 15 years old. And as you guys all know, it's a rabbit hole, right? You go down, and once you go down and start digging into the case and trying to figure things out, it takes you in all sorts of interesting directions. So Tony was kind enough to make my website sound very official and wonderful, but really it was just my attempt to take some of the photos and documents that I collected over the years and put them somewhere that was easy to share with some of my fellow researchers and friends, and just a place to store some of the collected material that I have. So thanks for the kind words on the website. So I think, I don't know, I've heard different researchers comment on this over the years, and I'm finding it to be true now. I'm in my 50s and in my, I don't know how many years of researching and looking into the case, but kind of what I found to be true is that when I first started, it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? There's information on, there are dozens of aspects to the case that are fascinating and well worth anyone's time, but it's tough to try to sort of deal with everything at one time, or deal with the entirety of the case. And I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but I sort of focused in on this Texas School Book Depository aspect and what was going on there. And Bart, I know just from talking to you over the years, I know you're well aware of the stories of James Jarman, Bonnie Ray Williams, and Harold Norman, and I'll throw Jack Daughtry in there too, since he said he was on the 5th floor at the time of the shots. I think it was reading those statements several years ago, and like you guys, I know I'm probably not giving anyone here any new information that you don't already know, but those statements are just a train wreck. They have multiple major problems. They conflict with one another.
Yeah.
We're
going over
and
this.
really that deserves its own separate day, separate analysis and effort. So we won't talk a lot about those guys here today. We'll touch on them some, but that's kind of what sent me down this 75 statements of these 17 witnesses. I'm reading the statements from Jarman, Norman, Williams, Daughtry, trying to make sense of them years ago. And it occurred to me that I knew there were people around the plaza that had made statements about, they saw this in this window, and that it was a little bit all over the place, but I didn't really realize the scope, didn't know the names of all the witnesses or how to attack that. So to try to figure out what might have been going on with Jarman, Norman, Williams in those window, the three black guys that were allegedly in those windows. And I'm going to say allegedly, and I think on the slides that I have, which you'll see coming up, that I've marked a few of the slides with photos that I've marked up. And Tony, you could probably move to the next slide there. But I've got these marked up as alleged positions, and I'm not suggesting that Jarman, Norman, and Williams weren't on the 5th floor. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. They had to be somewhere, and so they in my opinion, they very well may have been up there. But if they were, they saw a lot more than they ever let on, which is probably why their statements are a mess. So when I say alleged, when I look at the Dillard photo, I can't tell who we see in those windows. I'm not sure if you guys can, but I know some people have looked at those copies and tried to determine what exactly they're seeing, and I can't make it out. But and on the next couple slides, you'll see the Dillard photo. I think is the next slide, the one I was talking about. So one of the things I find interesting is there are reenactment photos of Jarman, Norman, Williams and their positions in these windows. And so I think some folks see those reenactment photos floating around and they say, well, of course it was those three guys. You can see them plain as day. But when you look at the actual Dillard photo, and maybe this is the best copy that I could find. If you go to the website, you can actually download a full-size image of this, and it's out there on the internet. It's not anything anyone can't find, but maybe a better quality version would give us a...
And don't forget that in the Daughtry statement, he's on the 5th floor here also, but he's on the opposite, like this corner of the building here, where Jarman and them are at, right underneath the sniper's nest. Daughtry says he's on the opposite side, over by the elevator and the stairs. Okay, so I don't know.
A better look at who's in those windows, and as I say, maybe it's them, maybe it's not. I don't know. There are definitely a couple of dark-skinned guys.
I've got a great quality image for you. It's about 6,000 pixels, so it's huge. And
can you make it out, Bart? Can you make out who those guys are?
Yeah, they are, but they're too neatly pasted in. That's my issue with that photograph.
Okay, I'd love to see it sometime. If you have to share, that'd be great.
Yep.
And so, and then the next slide is the Powell photo, okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later. So we've got the Hughes slide, which is about 10 seconds before shots fired, the Dillard photo, which is about 15 seconds after shots fired, and the Powell photo, which is about 30 seconds after shots fired. I say about because you read the various statements, and it's it says 20 seconds or 40 seconds or so. The 30 seconds, 15 seconds, the 10 seconds before, those are my estimates. So they may not be exact, but it's roughly the timing of those. So when I was looking at these guys, trying to figure out what was going on and why their statements made no sense, I thought looking at these images and seeing what the witnesses around Dealey Plaza saw in those windows might be helpful, might be instructive in helping us figure out what was really going on up there. So I didn't really start out I didn't really start out with an agenda to do anything more than that. But frankly, I didn't realize there were 17 people who were on record as having seen activity in those upper floor windows around the time of the shots. So I was surprised that there were as many as 17 people on record, and 17 people that I've found. There are a lot of good researchers out there, some of them on this presentation, on this call, who maybe there are other people that I'm missing. Maybe there are statements I'm finding. I did a Lancer presentation similar to this about a year ago, and since then I found 2 or 3, I think, new statements from witnesses that I had already identified. So when I say statements, those could be FBI reports, Secret Service, reports from law enforcement, newspaper articles, authors who had interviewed some of these witnesses. So, and as you guys know too, there's some, as we talk about these witnesses, and we'll go into detail on some of the more interesting ones. And some of the other ones, there's not a whole lot to say, so those will be quick hitters, and we'll spend some time then at the end talking about what this means and what we think the implications might be. So with that, let's see. I think it's important too when we talk about these statements, and when you guys, I think. Tony, were you able to share with the group the 2 matrices that I sent over? The 2 kind of large documents that had detail about who saw what. And
I haven't. Forgive me, Greg. I haven't done it. I will do that.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. And they're on my website too. They're in the blog section of the website. I started to build a blog post. I started about a year ago with the intention of writing up this presentation and writing up my findings, and it's been slow going, but the blog section of my website has the beginning of that post and the 2 matrices that I'm referring to, the witness matrix and the suspect description matrix. These are basically a way to list the witnesses that we're talking about, and in a nutshell, kind of here's what they saw, and then it's laid out with, whether they gave, one statement to the FBI, or whether there are, I think we've got, it's either Roland or Brennan. One of them has, Brennan, has 14 different episodes or statements that I've been able to find. So those are all listed on there, and the cool thing about the matrices, I think, and Tony's got the there's 2 of them. Yeah, the witnesses, and then the other one is kind of the.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry. This guy's taking very long. He's sort of like me, I guess, to do the setup. But I'm just wondering if I can blow this up, because see, they've got his little presentation right there. That's only, about half of the screen? So, I don't know. Hold on one second. Does this do anything? Okay, well that seems to help a little bit. But let me... Okay. But still, it's very hard, very difficult to read. Hold on one second. It says, summary of the suspicious activity observed in the Texas Schoolbook Depository windows. So, I can't read any of that. Hopefully he'll read that out. So we'll see what he does here. Alright. Hold on one second.
Specifically to do with if the witnesses observed the suspect well enough to have a physical description. That's on the suspect description matrix. So there's 2 matrices there. The cool thing about the witness matrix, I think, is that if you look at, I'm sorry.
I'm really sneezed.
Oh, okay. Is that
well, hopefully he'll get into this, but I always found it interesting that, and we're going to go into all of these witnesses that look up at these windows, just like this guy's doing. Because I've got a section of people either on the south side of Elm or on the east side of Houston that are looking up at these windows either right before the shots or right after the shots. There's some on the west side of Houston also. And almost every single description is different. There's a Negro, a bald-headed Negro. There's a man in a suit holding a rifle. There's a man, who's in his 40s or something. There's a man in his 20s. There's probably about a different description of a different individual in that window for every individual who saw someone in that window. But yet, within something like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, there's the description of Oswald going out. Even though you've got probably at least 10 witnesses that see different people that don't look like Oswald. Now, whether these all 10 went to the police, I'm not sure. But somehow they get it right on the money. There's no, APB, be on the lookout for a Hispanic male with a bald, Hispanic Negro with a bald head, or a man in his 40s wearing a suit, holding a rifle. It narrows down straight to Oswald's description, which I find quite strange. But anyway, hopefully we'll get into that.
Each one of the witness statements to which I refer, there's a hyperlink contained in the document in the matrix. So you can click on it and it'll take you right to that statement or that YouTube interview or a reference to a quote in a book or whatever it might be. So you can click on those links and pull that stuff right up. So we'll get started with the next slide, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah. So southwest corner of Houston and Elm, right, front and center, right across the street from the book depository, and I would like to mention too, this is my this is all work that I did, and these are kind of the if I make any assumptions or if.
Now we're going to go over all these witnesses. I've got this broken down to like Maine, Houston, the school book depository, the grassy knoll, or the North Elm, and then south of Elm. Okay, and we're just going to go through all these witnesses, but he's got it down right here on the corner, which these are the witnesses that looked up and saw either before or after the shooting and their descriptions.
If anyone, I guess, has any questions, or I'm open to being corrected, or open to discussion on any of this stuff too. I know that the JFK research community, we're not always in harmony with everything we think. So no worries if you have a dissenting opinion or something you want to bring up or challenge. I'm open to that and welcome that. So we'll talk a lot about Brennan and Amos Ewens, and just a little bit about the other three folks on this page. Brennan, I mean, I think I'm probably not gonna.
I think it was Howard Brennan's description of the shooter that the police actually used, and when they brought, if I remember correctly, when they arrested Oswald and brought him in, that he couldn't identify Oswald. When they had him in the lineup, he had to be pointed out to him, if I remember this correctly.
I'm going to share much here about Howard Brennan that you guys don't already know. You're very esteemed researchers and well versed in the case, but we'll have to talk about Brennan a little bit since he's such an interesting character. But several major problems with Howard Brennan, right? He was the Warren Commission's star witness, the guy who they thought they could put up there and say, oh yeah, he saw a guy matching Oswald's description in the window in question, and he was going to be their star witness against Oswald. It turns out that Howard Brennan says that he was sitting on that retaining wall facing the southeast corner of the book depository, front and center, and he gave a description which we'll go into. But one of the interesting things, and there was an article on Kennedy's and King that delved into this subject specifically, and I don't remember the author's name, but it's over there at Kennedy's and King. I'm sure you can search it. But it was talking about Howard Brennan and the fact that he wasn't positioned. He wasn't even sitting where he said he was sitting, right? He was, he says he was sitting facing the Texas School Book Depository when, if you looked, for example, at the Zapruder film frame 188, Z188, you can see clearly Howard Brennan with his construction hat is sitting on that wall, but he's sitting on the east side of it, facing Houston Street, watching the motorcade come up Houston. And as the limousine, as Kennedy turns left onto Elm Street, Brennan's body, he's facing Houston Street, and he's got his head turned around to the left, craned around, trying to see the limo and the activity over there as it turns the corner onto Elm. And again, you can look at Z188 to see what I'm talking about. So, and another interesting thing about that is when he's being questioned by the Warren Commission, and I think it's Liebler, I don't have it in front of me, but whoever's questioning him with at his Warren Commission testimony, excuse me, and they caught him on this. If you read that little exchange, the Warren Commission attorney questions his positioning and, hey, if you're seated here, why can't I see you, or why can't I see your legs dangling over the front, or however he words it. And there's a little exchange between him and Brennan, and it's very clear that the Warren Commission, the person questioning him, understands in that moment that Brennan wasn't where he said he was. But they move right by it and sort of let that go. So I wouldn't say it's impossible for Brennan to have seen what he said he saw from that position, but it would have been much more difficult. Some of the other things with Howard Brennan, and again, he's got 14, he's on the record that I could find 14 different times between the different FBI reports, Dallas police reports, Warren Commission. There was a book published. He died, gosh, I don't have it handy, but the book was published, I think, about 4 years after Brennan died. So he was, he did this book called Eyewitness to History with a guy named Cherry Holmes. And I don't know who, this Cherry Holmes guy has also passed away. But I think it's interesting in this book, it kind of sticks very much to the Warren Commission version of things. But I think it's interesting, the book, Brennan wrote the book with this guy, and the book was published, I think, several years after Brennan's death, which I think is sort of notable. But anyway, so back to the problems with Mr. Brennan. He was going to be their star witness. Wasn't where he said he was. He claimed that in one of his pieces of testimony that the shooter that he saw, and I'll pardon me while I'll read you from my witness matrix. Howard Brennan, just a summary of what he said he observed. A man in a southeast corner window multiple times between 12:22 and shots fired. His Warren Commission testimony, if you haven't read it, is pretty fascinating. It's combative at times. He's almost like a hostile witness at times. He's supposed to be their star guy who's going to put Oswald in that window. but his all of his statements deserve some attention. But that Warren Commission testimony is fascinating, and it's fascinating in that they that he wasn't where he said he was, and they knew it, and they let him slide on it.
All right, so we're going to stop right there. That's really good. I like what he's doing. He's a little slow, but, hey, that's just the way it is. So we will pick up the next time I swing back around and do this. I've got a lot of other projects I've been working on and doing videos on and research on. Besides just this, I'm also including the RFK assassination, the MLK assassination, because they're all related. So my videos won't come out as much. It'll probably get one maybe every once, twice a week. So, but still, that's not too bad for production there. But again, I'm just a black and white, common sense facts kind of guy, and we're gonna go over this. And the guy's kind of dry, but I like he's sticking to the facts. He's not fluffing it up, nothing like that. So that's really good. But I highly encourage you to go to the website or the YouTube site. I think they have a website too called Dealey Plaza UK. It's actually put on this YouTube site, Lone Gunman, but the website's Dealey Plaza UK. They've got some great photos, excellent quality stuff. I listen to Lone Gunman stuff all the time. Everything that comes out, you can see here I've got little notifications. It's probably one of theirs that just came out. But really good stuff. Of course, this right here is a couple years old, but it goes right along with what I'm going to be doing and reading all these Dealey Plaza Texas School Book Depository testimony and affidavits. So that's what we'll keep doing. We'll keep going along with that. Now my next section, this is like a little bonus I put on the end. I just really like this stuff because I had, especially after studying all the embassies in Mexico City. I'm going on an embassy tour. Like I said, I've been taking around the world. We're up in Canada now, in Ottawa, and we did the Iranian embassy last time, and now we're going to go to the Syrian embassy. But if I want to go back real quick to the Iranian embassy and read this Wikipedia article that I found about what happened there, because the embassy was closed for some reason. All right, so like I said, when I was looking at it, it looked like it had been abandoned, and that's about right. So it says on September 7th, 2012, the Canadian government announced it would expel all remaining Iranian diplomats in Canada within 5 days. As of September 17th, 2012, Canadian interests in Iran are represented by the Italian embassy in Tehran and the Canadian embassy in Ankara. Looks like also there was an attack here. Remember when I go over these embassies, I talk about defending them from terrorist attacks. So there was a terrorist attack in Canada. Again, when you're in these Western nations, they kind of let their guard down because there's more security. It's supposed to be more secure in Canada, places like Germany, France, UK, and the United States. But this one, it says the embassy was stormed by a group of Iranian exiles April 5th, 1992, linked to the Mujahideen. That's a group that Iran considers a terrorist group. No one was seriously injured in the raid, but the mob ransacked and destroyed much of the interior. Most of those responsible were later arrested. The relationship between Iran and Canada has been strained in recent years due to a number of issues, including Iran's nuclear program and human rights abuses in Iran. In 2012, Canada closed its embassy in Tehran, expelled Iranian diplomats from Canada, citing concerns of the safety of Canadian diplomats in Iran and Iran's support for terrorist organizations. Iran responded by closing its embassy in Ottawa and expelling Canadian diplomats from Iran. Now, let's not forget that back during the American embassy Iranian in Tehran hostage crisis that 5 members of the American embassy were able to escape to the Canadian embassy, and they stayed at the Canadian ambassador's residence, and that's what that whole movie, what was that, with Ben Affleck, about the Ark. Yeah, Ark. I can't remember exactly what it was about, but anyway, and it was all about how the CIA was able to work with the Canadians to go in and create this fake film crew and get the Americans. They would pose as Canadian film crew and get them out. And that was successful, and it was top secret, and they didn't know about it. And none of that was released until many, many years later. But when it was found out that Canada was involved, then that was, of course, created more tensions there. All right, so now we're going to go on to the Syrian embassy, and I think it is closed in Ottawa also. So let's find out. All right, so it does say it has been permanently closed. Hold on one second. It does seem to have some kind of website still up, but it also has a phone number. But it says the ambassador's vacant. So, but I believe it is closed. So hold on, maybe we can find another article. I don't see another Wikipedia article here. Let's take a look at this news article. It says, meet the man looking for after the abandoned Syrian embassy for more than a decade. Okay, yeah, so it's gone. Issa Khoury says he's been entrusted with looking in on the heritage property. Issa Khoury doesn't know precisely how many keys he holds to the Syrian embassy building in downtown Ottawa. He's never counted, but it's a lot. Offices, drawers, filing cabinets, the cars were all left behind or sold in the wake of the diplomatic fraying, whose effects are still being felt 10 years on, he told Radio Canada. In 2012, Canada joined its allies in a coordinated expulsion of Syrian diplomats as the regime Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad engaged in brutal violence against his own people. Operations inside the Syrian embassy ceased, but Khoury, now 74, says he was asked by Bashar Akbik, Syria's charged affairs, to keep checking in on the Queen Anne revival-style building. During the last decade, the provincial heritage building was experiencing interior flooding, a changed main roof due to leaking, and break-ins by squirrels, pigeons, and humans. Khoury said the heat has also been turned off, he added, but Khoury said it remains hopeful the embassy at the corner of Somerset and Cartier Streets, 2 blocks south of City Hall, can one day be reopened. It's a very solid building. I'm going to take care of it for as long as I can. So, yeah, there it is. Okay, so let's take a look at this embassy here. And got some pictures here. Oh, this is just street view. So, yeah, it's kind of overgrown. You see the trees not been manicured back. Yeah, there's the gate. Kind of interesting that, you see, this is how you can tell Syria didn't think it had any enemies in Canada, or they could reach it in Canada. That's why there's very little security. You see? Not even a high fence. Look at that. So, yeah. So apparently they didn't think at that time they would have any enemies trying to attack them. See, there's their seal. I'm sure that says the Embassy of Syria in the in Arabic there. And let's take a look. We'll start up at the top here. I'm surprised people haven't broken out these windows with rocks. So the the Syrian government is mostly Alawite, which is kind of a minority part of the Shia religion. It's sort of spiritualist and the Shia religion. Iranians and most of Iraqis are mostly Shia, but that's the government. The population is about 70% Sunni, or excuse me, maybe 50% Sunni, and then the other part is the Shia and the Alawites are probably no more than 25-30% of the population, and the Sunnis are the majority of the population, and then there's Christians and Druze also. But yeah, it looks like there's been a little bit of wear and tear on the building here. Not a lot of security though. See how the ivy's quite grown. Let's see. Is there any more to this? Ah, okay, there we go. So maybe this building is part of the embassy here. Yeah, let's take a look at that. Although that looks like a residential building. Hold on, let's go around the corner and see what... It's a nice little piece of real estate. Yeah, no, that's a separate residence there. Somerset Apartments. Yeah, very little security. So apparently they didn't fear anybody in Canada. All right, so that's it. And next embassy we're going to hit in Ottawa is going to be the North Koreans, if they have one. If the North Koreans have an embassy, we'll take a look at that one in Ottawa. All right, take care, and we will drive on with this. The next video I'm going to do in this JFK series is going to be about the MLK assassination. All right, take care. Bye.